Hello and good morning. My name is Jamelia Jacobs. I am your host today for the How to Build Reports webinar. Before we get started, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to use the questions box or the chat box so that I can read your question out loud and everyone else can benefit from that question being read out loud and a response as well. So we will get started. You should be able to view my screen. And I'm actually logged into my Jamelia Demo Apricot site. And I'm going to select the Administrator tab. So I select the Administrator tab. It takes me to our Administrator screen. On the left-hand side, we have our navigation menu. And specifically within our navigation menu, we have a section called Report Center. Underneath Report Center, we have Reports, and that's where we are going to build our reports today. So if I select Reports, it takes us to our reports, our report list. So as you can see, I have quite a bit of reports and categories listed. So all reports that you would have access to if you had access to the site would be housed here. So this has all of the reports that currently are within the Jamelia Demo site. So if I expand this sample reports section, I expand that, it has a report listed underneath. So all reports have to be listed underneath a category. It's very similar to the form design structure for Tier 1 or Tier 2. So kind of essentially the report is the Tier 2 and the category is the Tier 1. A report has to be listed underneath a specific category. So this is one report that has been pre-built, and it's a sample how to build report. If I expand that, it gives me some details about this report. So a description, if we listed a description, this one doesn't have a description, but it has who was created by, who was modified by, and who was the last person to run this report. And I have that myself, Jamelia Jacobs, was the last person to run this report on 8/12/2014. So every report within your reports list will have this timestamp of who has been accessing this specific report. If I hover over the word actions here, I have edit, and I'm able to edit this report. From the Administrator tab, I have the ability to edit this existing report. If I hover over this green gear icon, I'll select it, and it opens up the category properties for this category named sample report. So if I wanted to, I could rename this category something else. I can change the name from sample reports to Jamelia's reports. I would click apply and it would apply that change. So what's great about all of these categories, and all of these listed below are different categories. So it's Jamelia Training, Report Demo, these are all different categories. Well, why would you want different categories? If you have multiple programs or various departments, it's allowing you to kind of categorize and manage all of your reports and kind of keep them grouped together. It's like your reports file cabinet. So you know which reports are specific to that department or even just content. So categories allows you to manage the amount of reports that you have, especially as your organizations grow and you build more reports. Having them listed under specific categories helps with that management and keeping everything nice and tidy. So this is our reports list, and actually here on the right-hand side we have kind of two things listed here: our report actions palette and then our report list filters. And I'm going to talk about the report list filters first. So the report list filters allows you to filter for a specific report based on date, days, within a certain amount of days or not within a certain amount of days, and the published date. So whether a report has been published, which means that the report is viewable to permitted users. The report has been modified, meaning that a published report, you've made changes to a published report, but those changes have not been made viewable to permitted users. And then unpublished, it means that it's a work in progress. I'm currently working on it, and it has not been published, so no one who does not have access to the administrator tab would not have the ability to see this report. So it has not been published. It's not made viewable to anyone because I'm still working on it. So with the report list filters, we're able to find a specific report based on these kind of 3 sets of criteria. So if I wanted to find a specific report that has a creation time within the last 50 days, and it doesn't matter of the state, it has completely changed my report list. So all of those other categories and reports no longer appear because I'm filtering based on creation time within the last 50 days. So if I expand this category where it says programming staff, I have this client demographics report, I have this regional funders report, and I have this CTK test, this category, and then underneath the category, these 2 reports have been created within the last 50 days. This, again, plays a tremendous role, especially as you will have a lot of reports in your report list, and sometimes you need to find a specific report based on its, it's a time frame. This report list filters allows you to find that report using these 3 sets of criteria. So it's really helpful because the amount of reports you will have will grow, especially if you're an administrator and there's multiple administrators. There's a lot of people working in the background, so the report list filters helps out very much. So if I scroll up, I'm going to select all because I want all of my categories to be listed. But we've talked about the different categories now. Let's see how we would create one. As I go to my report actions palette, I have 2 buttons in here. The first one is to create a new category, and the second one is to create a new report. I'm just going to show you how we would create a new category. And I have quite a bit of categories, so let me think of a new name. But if I select Create New Category, it opens up my new category property box, and I can name my category. But there's also 2 buttons listed here, Single and Multiple. Single selected allows me to create 1 category. If I select multiple, it changes my property box here, and it allows me to create multiple categories at once. So if I have 10 programs, I want to make all 10 categories. Right now, I would be able to. So if I call this one Jacob Report, and this one is quarterly report for 2014, and then I select Create. If I scroll down, my 2 categories that I have created are listed below. So Jacob's Reports and Quarterly Reports 2014. If I expand that, there are no reports listed underneath these categories. And we have some text here where it says drag items here to add them to your category. Well, what's great about this is that we can drag reports that are in different categories into our new categories. So we have sample tests, and we have this one report called sample. We can drag it and put it into our brand new category. So you're able to move reports in between different categories. So it's not just static. So you're absolutely able to move reports in between different categories. And if I didn't want it to be in Jacob's report, I needed it to be in the quarterly report, I would just grab it and drag it to the new category. So you are able to drag reports into different categories. I'm going to scroll back up because we created a new category. The next thing to do is let's create a brand new report. So if we go back to our report actions palette here, and we're going to select the button Create New Report. I select Create New Report. It opens up my report properties box, and then I have to select the category that a report should be listed under. I can't just have a report freestanding on its own. It has to be listed underneath that specific category. I'm going to list it underneath our quarterly reports 2014. And I will call this report training sample. And select create. Here is our report. So it has taken us to our report, which essentially is a blank canvas. So this is how all reports start out as. No information, has been pulled in. It's an absolute blank canvas, and you're going to tell it what you want this report to be about, essentially, what information you want or what data you want to be displayed. So we have our name, report training, sample 2014. You'll notice that it has a green gear icon. It means that it's a property box. You will see this a lot throughout this report webinars, report training, as well as other parts of Apricot. This gear icon is an indicator. It's telling you that, hey, there's more things that you can do to this specific field or to this property. There's additional properties, additional ways that you can manipulate the information. So you will see this green gear icon throughout, a lot of Apricot, and specifically within, report training or within this report builder. So if I select this green gear icon, it opens up report properties, and it has the report name. Well, maybe I don't want to name this report training sample 2014. Maybe it should be, let's say it's program training 2014. And I can give my report a description. Well, why would you want to give your report a description? Sometimes a lot of reports have similar, labeled names, and then you're not sure exactly, well, is this the report I created, or what exactly does this report entail? If you put a description, it helps you in addition to naming it. So if we say this is, regarding clients by program, clients by program and gender. And I select apply. So that description will then appear on the actual report once we publish it. It will also appear on our report list when we expand the information on the report to see the timestamp, who created it. It will have the description listed as well. Excuse me. So this is we've renamed our report program training 2014, and now we have some information here. We have this section that's called New Section, and if I select that green gear icon for New Section, it opens up our section properties box. So the report had a report properties box. This section has a section properties box, and I'm able to rename it. So maybe I don't want it to say section property. It can say, client by gender. So I'm able to rename the section of my rename the section in this report. If I select apply, now my section is called clients by gender. I'm going to open this section properties box again because there's a lot of things that we can do to this section before we even put any data within it. There's things that we can, this section properties box allows us to manipulate information or data that will be pulled into the section. So the first thing in this section is the data style. Excuse me, the display style. And there's several options. We can have the display style be hidden, where we do not show this section or the data within it. We can have the display style just be graph only, where it will only show the graph and none of the actual data points, just the graph and none of the groupings of data underneath. We can have the display style just be total. We just want to see the totals. It would give us that. Right now it's on default for rows, so as we pull in data to the section, it's going to list everything out in rows. If we selected vertical, it would list out all of the data vertically. So rows would be horizontal, and if we select vertical, all of the data would be listed vertical. We also have counts here. So right now the default is total rows, and there aren't any other options. Well, that's because we don't have data within this section. Once we pull in some data, the options for counts will increase. More options will appear. Count allows you to count the data that's within this section. So right now, it'll just give us total rows, but if we pulled in some data maybe from a Tier 1 or Tier 2, it will allow us to count the amount of data for that specific record. So if it was a Tier 2 and we're counting all of the Tier 2s, it would literally count all of those Tier 2 records, even if it's for the same person. So count is pretty important, and depending on the data you pull in, your options will vary. Show graph, it's listed as the default is no, but if we selected yes, it would turn the graph on. And I'll show you, I'll actually turn the graph on a little bit later once we actually pull in some data into our section. Show outcomes is a wonderful tool. It's not something we go over during the How to Build Reports webinar. In the Advanced Reports training, they go a lot in depth on the Show Outcomes tool. Show percentages is listed as no, but if we selected yes, it would show, it would give us the percentages of the data that we've put into our section. Auto run is listed as yes, but if we, it will, once we publish this report, it would, and run it, it would automatically run the report. If we selected no, then it would then prompt us, would we like to run, would we like to run this report, or we have to select the link for then it to be expanded and then to run. So it's automatically listed as yes, but if we wanted it to be no, we can do that as well. And then within the section properties, we have delete. So if we wanted to, we can delete the section. If we wanted to copy this section, we could. Well, why would you want to copy a section? Sometimes, the information that lives in this section is very much relevant to the next section you will create. And instead of starting from scratch, you can use the previous section as your foundation and just pull additional fields or change the information. But it's kind of just a shortcut, so you don't have to start from scratch. You can just use the previous section's data as your foundation. Apply will apply any changes we've made within the section properties so that it appears in the section. Okay, that's section properties. So within this section, we have some text here, and it says drag items here to add them to your section. The first field added will determine your root form. So the first field you pull in will determine, will be the foundation of this section. It will determine what you're able to pull in second, third, fourth, fifth. So since a lot of information is related or may not be related, it will determine what you're sometimes not able to pull in. So if some forms are not linked or to their tier 2s under two different tier 1s, it's not going to allow you to pull that field in. So it's very important that you're cognizant and you're aware of what you're pulling in first, because it will absolutely determine what you're able to pull in second and how the information should be relayed or related to each other within this section. And so if we look over here on the right-hand side, we have our field choices palette. And within our field choices palette, it has all of the forms that exist in my site. So for the Jamelia Demo organization, for my Apricot site, these are all the forms that are listed within my site. For your organization, it will be completely different because every organization forms are unique to their organization. So if I expand sample tier 1 profile, this is my tier 1, you'll notice underneath that the tier 2s are indented underneath, so we have that designation that we know that these tier 2s are related to this tier 1. If I expand sample tier 1 profile, it gives me the sections that are within this tier 1. And then if I expand this section, like specifically main, it's giving me all of the fields that are within this section that are within this tier 1. So these are all the fields that are within that main section of my tier 1. And so the next thing to do is to pull in that data. So if I pull in, I'm going to pull in a first, I'm going to pull in last, I'm going to try pull in status. scroll down a bit, and I want to pull in gender and date of birth. So I've pulled in all of those fields. So I've pulled in first, last, status, gender, date of birth. If you notice, every time I pull in a field, my screen refreshes. So if let's say I pulled in, phone number. I pull that in, my screen refreshes, and it does that so that all of your data is aligned properly. If it didn't do that, then maybe this phone number would be listed for Allison instead of Albie. So it has to refresh in order for all of the data to be aligned correctly. In this case, I really don't want to use phone number, so I'm going to open this green gear icon for phone number, for this phone number field. Again, as I stated previously, you will see this green gear icon because that's telling you, hey, there's additional things that you can do to this field or to this information or to your data. So if I open that up, it gives me the column properties, and I have the ability to delete. So I'm just going to delete this field because I want to just show you some other things. So I have some additional text here, and it says results limited to the first 10 rows. Because we're building this report and it's in the Administrator tab, it will only show us the first 10 rows. It doesn't mean that we only have first 10 rows of data, or it will only show us that after we publish it. But just in the Administrator tab, it's only going to show us the first 10 rows. After we publish it, it will show us all of our data. So just for building's sake, and just for just to make things less complex or difficult, it's just going to give us just the first 10 rows. But once we publish, everything will be viewable. So you notice now that we have this little kind of section called Forms, and underneath it says Sample Tier 1. Well, because we've pulled in data, we now, the name of the form is now listed here. And it's telling us that all of these fields, excuse me, are from this Tier 1. So any field we pull in, depending on wherever wherever form we're pulling it in from, that form will be listed here. So in this case, all of these fields are from the Tier 1. So this Tier 1 form is listed here, and it's going to tell us that. It's an indicator that all of these fields are from that Tier 1. And so let's open the field property box for first. So I open that up, and it gives me the column properties box. Well, within Apricot, and specifically with reports, once we pull that field into a section, it's now called column because all of the information is literally listed as a column. So it's now called column properties. But before we pull it in, it's a field. Once we pull it into the section, it's a column. So I've opened up the column properties box for first, and I'm able to change the name of my field. So right now this says first, but I'm going to make sure it says first name. I select apply, and that change is now reflected. I'm going to do the same for last. So if I open up the column properties box for last, I'm able to change the name. Now it says last name. I select apply. I'm going to open this back up. And so within the column properties, there's several ways that we can manipulate the information. So we have data style, and this allows us to manipulate the data that is within this column. Because this is just a text field and it's specifically for name, we have the ability to change the text within this column to upper, lower, custom text, custom numeric. So if I wanted to change it to upper, click apply, all of the data within this column are now uppercase. If I open the column properties box for first name and I changed it to upper as well, I select apply, all of the data within this column is now uppercase. So first name and last name are now uppercase. I'm going to open up the column properties box again because there's additional things. So we also have summary, and we have group by this column. Summary will vary depending on the type of data that is within your column. In this case, it's just text. So we can count where it gives us the option of no summary. It's not going to summarize any of the data within the column, or count distinct. It's going to give us the distinct last names. So if there's a last name that is, that appears twice, well, it's only going to count it once because it's going to count just the distinct values that are within this column. So if I select count distinct, I select apply, there are 60 distinct last name values. Even though we have total rows of 67, only 60 are distinct. So Billingsley, we clearly see that it appears here twice, but it's only being counted once because it can't be counted twice. That doesn't make it distinct. So the summary the summary and its options kind of vary depending on the type of data that's within the column. So I'm going to select apply, and that's for last name. I want to go into status because I want to show you how the column properties can vary as well depending on the different types of data within the column. So we can count distinct for the distinct types of a status. So if I select count distinct, I select apply, there are 3 distinct values, status values. So maybe there's active, inactive, and maybe MA. I specifically want to show you date of birth because the date of birth will have different summaries and different data styles. Because this is a date field, that's the type of data that is within the column, the data style will be completely different than the first or last name column. So for data style, for specifically date of birth, we have it listed as normal. It's just giving us the date. But if we wanted it to calculate age based on today's date and date of birth, it's going to give us that age. So if I select age, I select apply, it has changed my data within my column. So it's actually giving us the ages of all of our clients that have listed a date of birth. I'm going to open this back up, and we can do that we can have it just give us the year, the month name, day of week, week of year, quarter. It all depends on what we want to display, or what type of story we're trying to display, whatever data that may be relevant to us. So data style, we're able to kind of change the data that is within the column, and it will vary based on the type of data. This is because this is a date field, our data style, we have a lot more options. Now with summary, you can clearly see that we have additional options for summary. We have earliest, latest, and count distinct. We can count the distinct ages, and I'm going to change this so it gives us ages. And so we can have it give us the earliest age or the latest age. So it gives us the earliest age. I select apply. The minimum age is 0. Of course it would be 0. But if we change it to latest, I select apply. The oldest person is 66. So the maximum age of any of our clients is 66. No one's older than 66. I'm going to open age back up, and if we wanted to, we can count distinct as well. There's additional things within this column properties. I'm going to say this for last, and we're going to use the gender field to kind of talk about group by this column. But for within the column properties, we have additional things that we can do. Formatting, we can kind of change the formatting that's within this column. So if I expand that, I can sort the data within this column. I can do ascending, descending. I can hide the data. So sometimes you need a specific column to help you manipulate the information within a section. But you don't want it to be displayed once you publish this report. Maybe it's the client's first name. Maybe it's the client's social security. You need that to be hidden on the user side because it's very case-sensitive information or confidential information. You can hide specific columns within a section. So if I select hidden, I select apply, you'll notice that the green gear icon is shaded out. Now it's gray, and that's an indicator that's telling me that now this column will be hidden once we publish this report. If I open this back up, there's additional things. Oops. Okay, I'm open that up again and scroll up a little bit. And so we have width. I can change the width of my section if I wanted to. It expands, or I can make it smaller. I can change the alignment, so I can change how the data within the column is aligned. So I can have it, right now it's default for left. I can center it. I can make it right. I can change the font style of the data within the column. Right now it's normal. I can bold it. I can italicize it. I can also change the color. So if I wanted to, I can have the data be blue, select OK, apply, and now my entire column is blue. So the data within my column is blue. Now if I go back into my formatting, there's additional information below, so form info. And this just tells you where, again, where this field is coming from. So if it is, it's telling us that this field is from this Tier 1 and specifically from the main section and, the original name of the field. But because, sometimes we're changing the names, like we did first name and last name, and the date of birth, we changed the name. And this helps us to remind us, oh, well, this field was originally the gender field, and we changed it to age. So this is just a little bit of helpful info below. So I'm going to click Apply. Okay, so let's open up the gender field because there's one additional thing, property that we can do within this column. So we can group by this column. Grouping plays an important role in how the information is displayed and how you need the information to be displayed. So if I group by this column, I'm going to select yes, select apply, my information. I've manipulated my information. I'm grouping, all of the fields I've pulled in by gender. So I want to see, I'm seeing those who did not indicate a gender, those who indicated their gender as female, and those who indicated their gender as male. And this one appears at the top because this is saying that, these constants did not indicate any gender and is actually being listed as a grouping. Gender, and again, grouping plays an important role because it's manipulating the information, to your specifications, but it also allows the information to be displayed in a graph because you're telling the graph, well, break all this information out because this is how I want it to be displayed. If you don't group by anything, the graph won't know what information should be segmented or how it should be kind of broken up. So grouping plays an important role in the information that is displayed within your graph. So the next wonderful thing is, actually I want to pull in some Tier 2 data because I just wanted you to see how that works, how once we pull in Tier 2 data, the form will appear here underneath. So we pulled in from a Tier 1, and let's just pull in some data from the Tier 2. Let's try evaluation and main. I'm just going to pull in date, and I'm just going to pull in evaluation time. And so I've pulled in my evaluation dates and my evaluation type. And what's really cool about grouping, because I'm going to just kind of keep going on that track, is that you can group by more than one field. So we're only grouping by the gender field, but maybe I want to see be grouped by evaluation type. So if I select evaluation type, this column property box opens up, and then I want to group by this column. I'm going to select yes. And so now I'm able to group by all of the evaluation types as well as gender. So those did not indicate any gender, and their evaluation types of interim, post, or pre. And the same thing for female. Those who are female, and then of those female, how many had an interim evaluation, how many had a post evaluation, and how many had a pre-evaluation. And if we look here where it says row count, it's giving us those listings, the actual counts. So for row count, it's 33 females, and 10 of them are had interim evaluations, 5 had post, and 18 had pre. And we now have a total row count of 89. That's not 89 clients, that's 89 evaluations. And so we're grouping by evaluation type, and we're grouping by gender. And if we look here, if I scroll up a little bit, we now see that sample tier 2 form is listed underneath. And that's just telling us that, well, of all of our data that we've pulled into this section, some is coming from this tier 1 and some is coming from this sample tier 2 evaluation. If I open this up, it's giving me additional just information that, this is the profile, the tier 1 form properties. And if I select this sample tier 2, the form properties box is a little bit different because we can then limit the type of information that's coming from the tier 2. So we can say, always show us the information that's coming from this tier 2 and limit it. Do we want to limit it? No. Or do we want to limit it to just show us the last created tier 2 form? Since we're able to create multiple ones, we can limit it to show us just maybe the first one that is created or the last one that's created. So within actually the next webinar, the advanced reporting webinar, they go a lot more in depth on how we're able to limit the type of records that appear within our section if they're a tier 2. So speaking of limits, we can limit or filter the information within our section. So right now we have none, we have female, and we have male. And we have this wonderful button here all the way to the right of filters. It's our little plus sign. If I select that, it says add a filter, and it opens up our filter properties box. And a filter essentially allows you to kind of trim the fat and manipulate the information that's within your section. It allows you to kind of hone in on the more relevant data and take away certain data points that's not relevant to your section or to the story you're trying to display. So we have a rule here. So we can select a specific field, select the filter. It gives us this drop down, and we can select any of the columns we've pulled in, and as well as any of the searchable fields that come from that tier 1 and tier 2. So in this case, I want to filter by gender. So I've selected my rule is gender, and right here I have this wonderful field. It's our drop down, and it's our limiter field, because we're going to say for gender we want it to do certain things. So if I select this drop down, I can say gender equals, begins with, ends with, contains, is empty, matches any of, or matches any option. And it will limit our information based on any of these selections. So essentially this is the limiter field. So in this case, I wanted to remove none. I only want to see clients and their evaluation records that have indicated a gender. So I only want to see clients that are male or female. I don't want to see any clients that did not indicate gender. So if I say I select matches any of, it gives me the actual options for that gender field. If this gender field had multiple options, all of those options would be selected. In this case, I want to select female. I want to select male. If I select apply, if we look now, I'm going to collapse female and male. And if we look, our report has changed. So it's now only given us clients who have indicated a gender. So that original section that grouping that we had that was a none has been removed because we filtered our section to only show us male and female clients, not those who did not indicate any gender. And so if I go back into this filter, there's additional things I can do. I could have selected any of these other selections, and below I have some additional options here. So I have this button for inverse. It will do the opposite of whatever we're asking the limiter field to do. So if I select inverse, it changes does not match any option. If I uncheck it, it reverts back to the kind of the positive. So inverse essentially does the opposite of whatever we were asking the limiter field to do. Locked will lock this filter. So when we publish it, and we'll display that we do have a filter on this report in this section, but we cannot remove the filter. Hidden will hide the filter so that our users, don't even have to see that we have a filter on. Global will make a filter global so that we can put it on other sections within our report. And comparison will allow us to compare two sets of data within a section. All of these options during the advanced reporting webinar, they will go more in depth on all of these options. So I'm going to just select apply. So we're filtering by gender, and it's only giving us female and male. Well, now I want to see this in a report. And so the next thing to do is actually let's turn, as a report. I actually want to see this information displayed within a graph. So if I go to my green gear icon here, and it opens up my section properties, and if I go to where it says show graph, it's listed as no, but I'm going to turn it on for yes. And it has displayed our graph. So it gives a default graph. So based on our data points, it's saying like, oh, well, I think this may be the appropriate graph for you, but it's not always the case. And you'll notice that the green gear icon, there's one here for graph. So it means that this graph has a graph properties box and that we can manipulate the information within the graph. So we can change the graph type, we can change our data source, we can change the depth, and even stack the information. And we can add target lines and additional graph properties to this graph. In this case, I'm going to select maybe the column. And I select apply, and this is perfect. So this is our graph, and it's saying that, for male and female, and those who have had an evaluation type of interim, 10 are female, 13 are male. And the same thing for post and pre. And if I go back to my graph properties box, I'm able to change the name of my graph, or actually name my graph, because right now it just says new graph, but let's name it. It should be, client by gender and evaluation type. I'm going to select apply. So now we have a graph, clients by gender and evaluation type. So interim, post, and pre. And this is a pretty good graph. So if I scroll down, yep, it's given us all of this wonderful information. And so I want to, let's talk about some additional fields here, because we're going to publish this report because I want to show you what it looks like from the user side. But on the right-hand side here in our report actions palette, we have a couple of things that we can do. We have a wonderful button here, add a new section. So we can add, originally I said we can copy a section. So we would be able to copy this wonderful section that we've built, or we can just create a blank section and start from scratch. So if I selected add new section, it adds a brand new section here for us, and then we would just start from scratch and pull in all of the fields that we would want in this new section and rename it as well. We can save this report. So if I select save, it saves the report. So if I needed to step away and do some work, I could come back and my report would still be here even though I did not publish it. So saving allows me to save it and come back to continue working on it until I'm ready to publish it. Copy this report will allow us to copy this entire report and essentially use it as a foundation for a brand new report. So the same way we can copy a section, we can copy an entire report. Some people just like that shortcut, and it's a wonderful shortcut. So you don't have to start all over. You can just use this report as your foundation. Excuse me. Publish this report. We'll publish this report and make it viewable to all permitted users. And we'll do that in a moment. Revert report will revert the report to its last published version. Well, why would you want to do that? The revert report button is kind of like your lifeline. So say you publish this report and then maybe one of your users or maybe just yourself, you made some edits to this report and you've completely messed it up and it's not the way that it should be, and you really need to get it back to how it originally was. If you select revert report, it will revert it to its last published version, therefore kind of helping you out, saving your life. So then you can kind of start all over, or maybe just do a brand new report. But revert report kind of will revert your report to its last published version. Delete report will completely delete this report. Maybe you don't need it. It will completely remove it. And then return to report list will return us to our list that has all of our reports that are built within Apricot. So if I select return to report list, it takes us back to our report list. And I'm going to scroll down to our quarterly reports 2014, that section. And here's our report that we're working on, Program Training 2014. I'm going to expand that because it has all of the data, a little bit of information, the details on this report. So our description, clients by program and gender, and who's been created by, modified, and last run, all by Jamelia for today's date. So if I hover over actions, I'm going to select edit. It takes us back to our report, and the next thing to do is to publish this report. But before we're able to publish, we have some information listed here, requirements. We have a publish checklist, and it's telling us that the following sections have empty columns. So we cannot publish our report until we do something about this empty section. So I'm just going to delete it because we don't need it at this point. Just delete it. And I'm just going to save my report, and I'm just going to refresh. And now I'm going to publish. So I published my report. It gives us this message, publish notice. Are you sure you want to publish this report? Once published, all changes made will become available to permitted users. So whoever we've given permission to view this report will now be able to view it. So I'm going to select publish. It gives us this wonderful message that our publish is successful. Would we like to run this report? Absolutely. I'm going to select run, and it has taken us to our report. And here it is, Program Training 2014. Client by program and gender. That's our description, and this is our wonderful report. It has the forms that our data is being pulled from. It has our wonderful filter here. It has our wonderful graph, clients by gender, evaluation type, and our data. So we can expand that, and now we can see all of the data, more than the first 10 rows. So if I expanded interim, post, pre, I can now see all of my clients broken out by evaluation type. That's for female, and it's the same for male. Now I can see all of my clients broken out by gender and evaluation type. Now if I scroll up, this one other wonderful thing on the user side. So we have a filter already listed here, and that's from the administrator side. So, the admin tab where all the magic happens. But we also have runtime filters. So we're able to filter this report from the user side. And why would you want to filter the report from the user side? Well, a lot of your users will not have access to the Administrator tab. They won't have the ability to edit the report or to even build a report. Trim the fat and filter the report, from their perspective. And this filter isn't permanent. It just allows them to temporarily alter the information, the data that's in this report to suit their reporting needs or requirements. And it's not permanent. So if I selected, add a filter, select this little button here, it opens up a filter properties box. And I can then put a filter on this report, and it's temporary. So if I wanted just to see, gender equals female, I only want to see female clients. I don't want to see any of the male clients. I select apply. Well, as you can see, my graph has changed, so it's only giving me female clients, and that male grouping has kind of disappeared. So it's only giving me female clients. And so this filter is temporary. It's just a runtime filter, and it doesn't permanently alter the report, and it doesn't permanently alter, and it doesn't make this filter viewable for any other user that's logged in. I'm just logged in, so it's gonna affect me. But if you were logged into this same report and you were looking at it, you would not see this gender equals female filter. It's only relevant to the user that has put the filter on. It doesn't affect any other user. And it's temporary. So if I wanted to remove this filter, if I go here to my report actions palette and I selected this button that says reset filters, it's going to completely remove the filter. So I select reset filters. It has removed my temporary filter and reverted my report to its original published version. And we have a couple of other things here in this report actions palette. So I can edit this report. A lot of your users will not even have this button. So I can edit it because I have administrator access. But if you're a regular user and they do not have access to the admin tab, then they would not even have this edit button. Print mode allows you to print this report. Export will allow you to export this report into an Excel document. So if I selected export, it has exported my report into an Excel document. And well, why would you want to be able to export your report? Sometimes, customers need to manipulate the information outside of Apricot, and this just allows you to do so. Full screen will allow us to get the IMAX version of this report. So if I selected full screen, it opens up in another tab. And this is our report, but just in a really large view. And it doesn't have any of our tabs here at the top, our navigation menu on the left, and none of our action palettes on the right. So it removes all of the wonderful buttons on the sides and just allows us to see our report really enlarged. And I'm just going to go back to our report list. And we already discussed reset filters. And if I select return to list, it takes me to my reports list, but from the user side. So it's not going to show any of those other sections because they don't have any reports listed underneath. And this is all of the reports and the categories, that I currently have access to.